Thank you so much, Jay. Good morning to the acting minister, acting national commissioner, the deputy ministers, and the SAPS management. Thank you so much for the presentation. I want to start off with something that's very topical and nothing was mentioned about it, SANDF deployment. A complete failure, a big disappointment to us as South Africans. Why haven't we heard anything about that deployment? Minister's priorities, as well as a SONA priority. And I'm really, really disappointed that nothing was said about it in your presentation. Nothing was said about the fact that we haven't had a single report since the deployment in terms of successes, in terms of informing South Africans where we are, what has happened, is it working, is it not working. If anything, since the deployment of the SANDF, there's been more deaths on the Cape Flats. If anything, it almost feels like a drive-by, like a wedding drive-by, where a couple is driving through the community and everyone is waving and smiling. There's absolutely no operations taking place. And I speak from a point of being present at these operations, Minister. I was driving behind 3 of these operations in different areas on the Western Cape for over an hour. And guess what? Not a single time did SAPS or SANDF stop to actually go in anywhere. They drove through the community, they smiled and they waved and they went to park, and that was the end. What is happening? We have allocated billions. We literally see only one SANDF, and sorry if I'm going to be stuck here for a while, one SANDF van with 8 members and 4 SAPS vehicles in hard-hit communities. And at this point, we're having more than 100. We speak about the vulnerable women and children. That is where your victims are coming from, the Western Cape. I want to ask, why don't we have, your presentation speaks to a whole of government approach. Why don't we have a whole of government approach when it comes to this intervention? What stops us? What are the challenges? Because it has clearly fallen flat on its back. Why haven't we included forensics in this operation? It's not there. There's no intelligence. We speak to the members that's part of these operations. There's absolutely no intelligence. They don't know where to go and where to start. And that's the reality. So please, can we have feedback on the SANDF deployment, why it's not working, and what next? I think that's the first thing. Also, the second thing, I'm not sure if we are creating duplicate roles or if this is a smoke screen or what, but can we please unpack the role of the newly appointed, I'm not even sure what role he's been appointed in, General Kwanazi? Can we first, before I ask questions on that, please unpack what that role entails? And then also, we speak to the vetting, obviously, what is unfolding in ad hoc and Madlanga Commission and our response. Counterintelligence. There's absolutely nothing in this report about counterintelligence that exists within SAPS. When it comes to detecting the risk, when it comes to lifestyle audits, what are we saying about counterintelligence? Are they there? Are they dead? And are they active? And what is the budget allocation for counterintelligence? Or is it no longer needed within SAPS? Because if we had an active counterintelligence in SAPS, we wouldn't be sitting here today with an acting minister and an acting commissioner. Then also, the reservists. Here we have thousands of South Africans that has given their time and that has served this country for years, that has gone through all the training. And we are duplicating roles. We are employing new people in those roles when we do have our reservists. What are we saying about that? Where are we with the reservists who still have those personnel numbers on the system, who cannot even get grants because of that? We speak about, I think on page 31, youth, children, and vulnerable people. 47 million for youth, children, and vulnerable, and we speak about, prioritizing GBV, another SONA priority, 47 million allocated. And we speak about crime prevention, when there are hundreds of children on street corners begging, and our policemen are driving right past them. as if that's not a crime. What are we saying about children that's been abandoned on every street corner on the Western Cape, throughout South Africa? But we speak about a budget of 47 million. We speak about border security, 2.7 billion rand. Does this include scanners? We heard in the ad hoc committee about one scanner. What are we saying about detecting illicit goods coming through our borders? Do we have the relevant equipment to address it and to tighten border security? SAP's infrastructure. A couple of weeks ago, Chair, I visited the Hawks in Bellville, their office. Lord knows I wouldn't go to work. That building has been declared unfit many years ago. The morale of the members in that building is at an all-time low. Is that building part and parcel of the infrastructure upgrade? It cannot even be upgraded, it must just be scrapped. These are the real issues on the ground. I'm going to leave it at that for now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable James. Minister Cachalia.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to all the members who've asked very helpful and interesting questions. And they certainly, as I've keep emphasizing my engagements with the Chairperson, that they are extremely helpful also to the Ministry in identifying the issues that need focused attention. I'll try and address some of the questions, and then I'll hand over to General Pimpane. Let me just start with some of the issues that Honorable James has raised, because I think that for this process to work, the oversight process, it's important that the agenda and the focus of this meeting is kept in view. So we were asked to prepare on the budget and the APP. And so we've had questions, for instance, about whether these targets are realistic or not. Those are helpful. I'll address all the questions that have been raised. We were not asked to report on the SANDF deployment. But the honourable members entitled to raise that issue, and there are questions, legitimate questions, about how that intervention is being monitored and whether it is successful or not. It is successful or not. I think that is a matter that the committee should be focusing on in its work ahead. The deployment has just started. We as the Ministry also working on how to monitor the implementation of the deployment of the soldiers who are not directly under the command of General Pimpane. But I see that the SANDF has quite a lot of assistance from the honourable member, entering homes and so forth. Now, and it's certainly premature to make that kind of highly generalized observation about it not working. The deployment is for an annual period. And I would say, honourable members, that it's critical to understand that the deployment of the SANDF is not a panacea. We've never presented it as such. The critical question for the police is going to be how we use this period to improve the level of policing in relation to organized crime. And certainly the deployment of the SANDF was necessitated by the fact, by the recognition that we were not succeeding in dealing with the gangs, with illegal mining at the level that we need. And therefore, we should be having a conversation about what the government is doing to address this evolving challenge of organized crime. That is the critical question. The deployment of the SANDF is intended to create the space for us to develop and implement such an organized crime strategy. Now, as regards General Kwanazi, we have elevated him to a very senior role at a national level to deal with organized crime. So he will head up the Priorities Committee on Organized Crime in the Net Joints. The Net Joints is chaired by General Musikeli. That is the main operational structure through which operations are implemented. The politicians don't sit there. So the decision that has been made with respect to the appointment of General Bimpane should be seen as part of an effort incrementally to strengthen police leadership at the top. So the way we are seeing it is that she will be leading a team. General Kwanazi is part of that team. General Musikeli is part of that team, and they have distinct roles, and their responsibility is going to have to work together as a team. Is this idea that you have one national commissioner that does everything is wrong. What we need at the top at SAPS is a collective leadership that combines the skills and attributes of a number of key office bearers, if you like any large organization. And may I say, there's no need to be angry about this. If you ask the question, we'll give you an answer. General Kwanazi's appointment has been in the media. It's not hidden, it's been publicized. And I hope that his appointment also at national level will be appreciated, because we're making decisions about how to implement an organized crime strategy. And a decision about leadership is critical. In the documents before you, there is also the focus on the DPCI, which you might want to think about as our FBI. General, of course, is here. The DPCI, the commitment is to build out the capabilities of the DPCI also as one of the lead agencies fighting organized crime. Now, Honorable James raises the issue about children. This is a very important question, but the honorable members of this committee should know that this is why we need an all-government approach. You can't look at the SAPS budget and say, well, is enough money being allocated to support the development needs of children? The question should be, what is the role of SAPS in dealing with the enforcement issues impacting children, issues of criminality, and it's the same with GBV and H, on which I thought General Schnickeling, Member Schnickeling, yes, under my watch, it looks like there are going to be a few people who might get it. But you asked all the right questions about whether the targets and indicators reflect this commitment. It's the same with infrastructure, Honorable James. You know that actually the department is not an infrastructure department. We don't build police stations. We don't maintain them. So when you go around the country and you see places where there should be police stations and there aren't any, as I have, and you go to police stations that are not properly being maintained, the question is whether the current model of delivery of police stations and maintenance of those police stations is adequate. I don't think it is. And that's a challenge for the government. The stations are built by the Department of Infrastructure and Public Works. And we pay them to maintain those stations. Now, you must not misread me, members, to be thinking that I am now pointing fingers at another department. I won't do that. Because I know if I was the minister of that department, you would still have the same problem. It's a challenge that we haven't succeeded in dealing with over the last 30 years. So that is why we've started a conversation with the Treasury about our approach to infrastructure. And it arose out of a conversation I had with Deputy Minister Matale, which is, if the current model is not working optimally, not like it's not working at all. I visited many stations, new stations. I was in the Western Cape over the long weekend and visited what do we call it? Not a pilot, the ones where it's a temporary satellite. It was a fantastic structure. I mean, for a satellite, really secure, because that's one of the problems we have with using the satellite option, that the police officers there may not be safe. But this was a solid structure. So we have started a conversation with the Treasury around PPPs, whether we can use the PPP model. One of the priorities in my conversation with the new acting National Commissioner is to be the implementation of that model. And my understanding is that there already are 27 stations that have been identified by GTEC for the implementation of that model. But if that model can be implemented, which involves the private sector, it could possibly, I don't want to be making promises, it could possibly transform the infrastructure landscape of policing in this country. The current model is not working, and it's not working optimally. I think there's a planning problem. You go to many communities, you all know, colleagues, you go to a community, they've got a police station, but the community has doubled in size. The police station is no longer coping. There's a planning problem there. So let's not be also simplistic. Infrastructure is a huge and complicated challenge in this country around policing. But we are thinking about how to respond creatively and thoughtfully to that challenge. And that maybe the committee can invite us in a few months. I hope we'll be ready to report back on that initiative. Now, the members have all asked us the right questions about implementation. No one is just, I think we're all aligned here on the priorities, that these are the right priorities. And the priorities are embedded. I think that's what we should be looking for in this meeting. Are they embedded in the current budget? Are they reflected in the APPs? Are they reflected in the target? I haven't heard one member of the committee say, we don't agree with your priorities. And how did we do that? We engaged with the presidency for the purposes of the SONA. So president doesn't just make announcements. Then we adopted priorities, and I really have to express appreciation to the leadership of the South African Police Service for what they've done, because we identified those priorities. First of all, I have to make sure that me and the two deputy ministers are aligned. Then we took those priorities to the MINMEC so that we have an all-government approach. And those priorities were then discussed with the Board of Commissioners, and they have taken the SONA priorities, the ministers' priorities, and made sure that in their internal budgeting and planning, those priorities are reflected. I believe those are the right priorities, and no one has contested that here. The questions that I think Honorable Ghana particularly and Honorable Sheikh Snipping have raised the right ones, and I just want to go, spend some time on them, because the conversation we should be having here is not just a bilateral conversation between the committee and SAPS. It's a conversation involving the committee, the SAPS leadership, and the ministry. That's why I said that your questions are of enormous assistance to us, because they're the right ones. On the question of detective rates, Honorable Ghana is right that if we can start to see significant reduction in the murder rate, that is universally internationally accepted as a good indicator of police performance and of that you're succeeding in general with the fight against contact crime. The murder rate is an objective rate, as you indicated. Now, we know for a long time, and that's why your spirit also of the questions are so important. I think that it may well be the case that the great majority of cases are not properly investigated. We know that victims of crime don't receive regular reports in many cases from the police. We know that our forensic laboratories are not functioning at the level that they should be functioning. And I'm greatly worried about the backlogs. And my understanding is that those backlogs are increasing, not decreasing. So I would also hope that the committee can call the board soon. I'm going to be engaging the board and ask them those questions. Because you're quite right. If we don't improve the training of our detectives, and General Timpane, General Zulu are here. They must hear the questions you're asking, because they are the right questions. They're also my questions. I think we've got alignment in the budget and the APP. The question is how we're going to achieve these targets. And without rethinking, stepping up the training of detectives, without making sure that we improve the performance of the forensic laboratories, we're not going to achieve these targets. And when General Timpane made her opening observation, she said the issue is going to be around efficiency and effectiveness of the functioning of SAPS. She gave exactly the right answer, because we have to work within the existing resource envelope. All of you know the country's economy is not growing at the level that it needs to. You know that tax revenues are therefore under pressure. And you're all committed, as far as I understand it, at least in the GNU, to the current approach to the management of the country's finances. So the question is, we have to work within the budget, the financial constraints that the country faces. Because within those resource envelopes, we have to meet all the country's needs for social development, for the protection of our children, etc., etc. The question is, how does this budget reflect the priorities that the committee thinks should be our priority? Now, the reason that we're now re-emphasizing the importance of civilian oversight, and they're here, is that I think we got into this position over the last 30 years because we de-emphasized the monitoring, evaluation, and oversight role of civilian oversight. It's not going to be possible to turn civilian oversight around over time. There are good people there. They have some good leadership. but they have resource constraints. The same with IPID. We're going to be discussing that later. IPID is certainly not at the level where IPID, in terms of the resources, where it can ensure there's accountability. The question is, are we are we pointing in the right direction? Are we asking the right questions at least? So we have to emphasize training, we emphasize oversight to address the issues that Honorable Ghana and Honorable Smith asked. So it's about HR. General Nkua is also here. I want them to hear the questions you're asking because I'm going to be asking them the same question. So what we have is a start. They are going to have to answer the question how we implement and achieve the results that we're trying to achieve. So yes, we have I don't know even if that's too strong, if we have a blueprint. We've taken some important steps to align. We don't have a blueprint yet. And I'm sure that you're going to be, in your oversight role, even putting us all under pressure, especially those of us in the political process to say, what are you doing? What haven't you done? And I welcome the pressure, but I am saying we're at the beginning of this reset agenda, Chairperson. Reset. It's going to take years. I think we should start be thinking, not in a year, we should start thinking in the next 2 decades. Not like to postpone what we need to do, to take systematically, to take steps every year from now on to build the kind of police service that we're trying to build.